This is my Mercedes-Benz 600 SEL that I purchased after it had spent 21 years sitting in a garage. Now that I've rebuilt the 6-liter V12 engine and the automatic transmission, it is time for everything around them to catch up. And that's what this episode is all about. Overhauling the complete engine bay and the countless auxiliary systems of the W140, and finally putting the drivetrain back into the car. Chapter 1 of the video is the complete disassembly of the engine bay. Let's get started. Let me know what you guys think this is. This is the washer hose for the headlight wiper. It's not connected. I don't see any signs of crash damage at all, which is nice. This is what you compress to release it. Don't feel too bad for this guy. It's yellowed out appearance and all the built up sludge. It's going to be replaced regardless. The windshield washer tank will come out next. Disconnecting the coolant lines. Now you might be thinking, why is there coolant running to the windshield washer tank? Let me show you. So this is the heating element sitting inside the washer tank. Only in a Mercedes. We have two O-rings here, so you could have coolant leaking into your windshield washer tank. I bet that would be confusing if you didn't know about this. Not only is there a heating element in here, there's also copious amounts of trash. I honestly can't imagine how this is even in here. Needless to say, I will need to overhaul this entire assembly before I can reinstall it. The ignition coil, someone has been here before. They didn't put the cover back on correctly. This is the ignition control module for this side of the engine. That was like 30 screws for this one piece. Oh boy. I bet you guys have never seen a 600 euro cabin filter. You're about to see it now. The active charcoal cabin filter priced at 600 euros. Well, it used to be because it hasn't been available for quite a while. This one is in quite the condition. It's doing very well in the mold department. It also seems like the filter element has shrunk. I mean, there's massive gaps in here, air just getting by. The only option that I really have is to delete it from the system, as I can't replace it. I think I'm going to wrap it up, keep it as a souvenir. That's the best I can do. Now this is another blower motor, and it has only one job: to cool down all the main computers of the 140. Let me show you. This is where the main computers for the 140 live, and here is where that fan sucks air through, ventilates and cools down the entire assembly. I want to make sure it works. Very nice. Imagine what could happen if this broke down. Now behind that cover lives the wiring harness for the starter, the alternator, the oil pressure sensor, and a few other things. It is biodegradable, so I need to send it out to be rebuilt. Continuing on the same topic, the wiring for the mass airflow sensors is also biodegradable. I need to snip off these connectors, send them out, and they will use them to build a new harness for me. How this car was even running is a miracle. I'm getting ready to ship out all of the biodegradable wiring for repair. I'm going to go much deeper into that in the next episode, but I've also been informed that the knock sensors in the middle of the engine are also affected. So I'm going back and removing the intake manifold to get them out. Vacuum valve. I'm also removing the throttle cable. This insulation piece on the cable is absolutely falling apart. I'll see if I can find a brand new cable because these are no longer in production. I'm already having nightmares about reinstalling this. Death, taxes and rust, even on this car, there is no escaping it. This is actually a very common rust spot on the 140. To treat this area correctly, you will need to remove the engine, the partition panel, all of that. This area ended up being a lot more pitted than I thought. I mean, this was serious, strong rust. And this isn't even a rusty car. On an actually rusty 140, I can't imagine what this area must look like. I'm also applying fluid film wax to the area for added protection. This is where they drilled a hole for that radar detector or whatever it was. We need to fix that. And after some elbow grease, the whole engine bay came around nicely. And just like that, we are set to build it back up again. Starting with this steel coolant piping, it sits right here. It is also infected. Let's fix it. This is a toner pipe from a junkyard. It has loads of rusty spots as well, but this corner here is just fine and matches up perfectly. As you can see, the repair came out pretty nice. This was definitely necessary to do. I mean, the pitting was just so strong. I'm using this very crude method to flush the line. Brand new hoses from Mercedes, very important. Getting ready to install the AC lines. I want to replace this disintegrating pipe insulation. The expansion valve and these O-rings I'm not replacing at this point in time. I will need to revisit this area once I do the evaporator core. And since the active charcoal cabin filter won't be going back in, we'll be just closing this up. A great thing about having to remove the partition panel is that I can solve one of the biggest eyesores in the engine bay, the absolutely disintegrating heat insulation. I'm very happy to announce the brand new throttle cable all the way from Canada. It's one of the last left in the world probably. Now all I can really do with the master cylinder is replace these external seals. The internal seals unfortunately are not available. It looks nice and clean, beautiful. Next comes the ASR pump. Definitely need to replace this brake hose. This is the electromagnetic heater valve with the auxiliary water pump. We have several seals in the assembly, so let's rebuild it. And the auxiliary water pump. Water pump turns nicely. Let's reassemble with a fresh set of seals. And that is the rebuild complete, nice and easy. These 5 coolant hoses are no longer available from Mercedes. Now people do all sorts of crazy stuff to try and bend regular hoses to shape, right? Because if you take a straight hose, try to bend it, it will kink, right? So what I have found by far the easiest method, I go on my local online parts store, I filter hoses, just all of them, I pick the correct diameter, and 95% of the time you'll find a hose where you can cut your pieces from. That is by far the most effective way. I have to say, this 10 euro hose from a Fiat Grande Punto has already given me 3 really nice pieces and saved me about 100 euros if the Mercedes hoses were still available. These are going to be so fun to line up, 4 hoses at a time. Now this heater hose is a bit tricky because this side is 18 millimeters while this is 15 and it's no longer available. But I believe this one from Gates can give us the piece. This is the acceleration sensor, very cool. So I have no idea what this piece is. We have AC refrigerant running through it, also fuel vapor lines connected to it. I'm not sure. Anyways, we need to swap out these O-rings. This is a valve for the rear AC. And here's a brand new ignition coil from Bosch. Installing a new dryer and a pressure sensor. You don't want the dryer sitting open to the elements. Make sure the lines are plugged. Getting ready to install the ignition module. Now it's very important to swap out the thermal paste behind here every 10 years. So if your classic Mercedes has one of these, most likely it has not been done, so it's very important to do it, and it's very important to use a really good thermal paste, something that is long lasting with great conductivity. brand new expansion tank. Also installing a new level sensor, coolant level sensor. An unfortunate casualty of this restoration will have to be the stainless steel expansion tank cap. The new style expansion tanks only come with this plastic one, unfortunately, even from Mercedes, but such is life sometimes. Alright, time to overhaul the windshield washer tank. I've been looking forward to doing this. And after a bit of scrubbing, the inside came out almost spotless. And here's what we have to overhaul it. New seals, new pumps, and a new level sensor. New coolant hoses, of course. The headlight washer hoses are super stiff. Going to replace all of them. New one from Mercedes is a bit different. If you order the same part number, this is what you get now. Also have a new one-way valve. Now the wiper on this side was not working, it was getting stuck in this position, so I need to test the motor. That is not supposed to do anything. That confirms that the diode is shorted inside the motor. Let me show you how it's supposed to work. That is how you test the wiper motors on the 140, 126, 124. The diode on the other motor is bad, so let's replace it. With the PU pudding removed, I believe I can see the melting spot of the old diode right here. Installing the new one, make sure the orientation is correct. So with one problem solved, another one appeared. As you could see, the range of motion is correct, but it just stops a little bit above where it's supposed to. So I need to open up the motor and investigate. So here's the motor and all of its internals. I spent quite a bit of time figuring out what the issue was and how to assemble it correctly. So let me show you. For these two gears, there really isn't an alignment. Just make sure they are greased up. Now this white gear sits in this corner of the housing and it pushes this pin in and out. Now when you install it, you have to adjust it so that this cam here would be pushing on that pin. That's the installation position. There you go. Now the installation position of this gear is very important. The line has to be vertical or maybe slightly to the right. When installing it into the housing to line up the gears, you might have to spin the motor around a little. Installing the shaft, make sure it's all the way to the right here. So I guess something was out of alignment and the shaft was it was stopping right about here. It has to stop maxed out in this corner. Well, not so fast. After some rigorous testing, this white gear constantly comes out of its place, comes out of alignment, which either causes the motor to run endlessly or stop in the wrong place. Let me show you what the problem is. You see how this end here constantly keeps popping up. That's the white gear pushing itself out of the place. You can see up here we have these two that are pushing this metal plate against our cover right here. But on this end there is just nothing. So the entire time this metal plate can just wave around on this side. But I think we can fix that. Not the most elegant solution, but I can't see any reason why it wouldn't work. And the next day it's all dried up, ready to go back in. Let's replace the wiper blades. Have to kind of press it in. Beautiful. A brand new headlight wiper motor would have been about 400 euros. To fix this one, it was less than 5, so it's definitely worth it to try and fix these instead of just replacing them. Brand new blower motor and resistor. Brand new pre-filter, or in our case, the only remaining air filter. And that is everything I can do in this engine bay, finished up. Now let's go back to the drive line, finish up a few things, and finally reinstall it back into the car after 7 months, I believe. It's too long. I can finally install the transmission dipstick. Very specific O-ring was required. Replacing the shifter linkage bushing. I have not removed the old one, it was just missing, completely disintegrated. Kind of tricky to replace these. Alrighty, the bushing is installed. This was a real struggle. I had to use a hose clamp around it, otherwise it would just squish as I was pressing it. And that ended up working really nicely. New bushing for the other end of the rod as well. Again, there's no old one to remove, it was just completely gone. The last obstacle in the way, the steering gearbox. It felt great in the car, but it's leaking out of its mind. So let's do a full reseal. Before taking anything apart, you have to make sure the steering box is centered. It's marking here and here on the shaft. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but take a look at this oil. There's loads of metal in it. That is not what you want to see. Alright, I guess I'll take it apart further and see it from there. Now by unbolting this cover, we should be able to pull out the entire power piston and the steering gear itself. There we go. Now, I'm not an expert in steering boxes, but that does not look good. This kind of scoring in an engine would be really, really bad. More of the same on the power piston. I don't think I can put this back together. New to me, used steering box. Let's hope for the best. I think this one might even be worse. I think there might be some moisture inside, additionally to the sludge. Take a look at the scoring on that piston. That's even worse than mine. There's some light pitting, corrosion right here, moisture inside. Now I bought 2 more steering boxes, and believe it or not, out of all of them, my original one is still in the best condition. So it does look like I'm stuck having to rebuild this one. It is hard to find quality information regarding these things, but it does seem like this type of wear in a steering gearbox might not be as big of a deal as it looks. But let me know what you think in the comments. Deep inside the housing we have a few seals to remove. Now our O-ring is a much easier target. Installing the new guys. The Teflon seal was real hard to squeeze in there. I hope it's okay. Last thing to do on the housing is to remove the control valve and the plug. I want to clean the control valve and replace a seal behind the plug. Wow. Okay, I guess it wants to be left alone. I can respect that. The next task is to reseal the pitman arm cover. I think there's 4 seals in this unit. Now to reseal this cover, I need to separate the steering shaft from the power piston. Recirculating ball steering. Should have 24 balls come out. Alright, that's 24 of them. The German engineers shrieked in horror as I was able to weasel my way out of paying 1,000 euros for the special socket and just use the punch instead. For disassembly, I used a punch to mark each piece according to the housing, so I would line them all back up, get the same preload on those bearings. Now, if you have a few special tools, you can measure how much force it takes to turn this and set the preload accordingly. If you do not have that, I think this is probably the best option. Make sure we are moving smoothly in and out. Ideally, you should replace these guys, but I'm not too worried. The manual states to use new bolts. I'll be doing just that. New locking washer, also has a seal on the inside. Make sure the power piston is centered. Now this nut is where you do your main adjustment. And of course you need special tools to do this according to the book. I'm going to roughly set it to where it was before, and I can always adjust it later on the car. Turns over nicely. I think we're good. It's play compensator time. The parameter valve. This can only go on one way. Make sure you measured this before disassembly. Mine was 20 mil. Of course I had to have the hydraulic lines refurbished. That is the steering box all finished up, looking much nicer on the outside than the inside. Let's reinstall it. Now these steering boxes hold quite a bit of fluid, so I think it might be a good idea to do kind of a pre-fill of sorts. Professional alignment tools. A major milestone indeed. I'm going to go one step further, install the front suspension, so it's going to be back on 4 wheels after 7 months. And here we have a complete new set of steering components, new tie rods, center link and steering shock. It feels great to have the engine off the table, back in its place, and to have the car sitting back on its wheels after all this time. This episode ended up being massive, but it just has to be done. You can rebuild the engine, you can rebuild the transmission, but if everything around it is falling apart, you're not going to have a good time. And that is especially true on the 140, especially true on the 600, because the amount of stuff they managed to cram in here is quite something for a car from 1992. In the next episode, we will connect everything up, finish up the install, there's still a lot to do, and of course go for the first test drive. I'm going to get back to work on that, stay tuned.